listening to BSI, the podcast with Benny Philhauer, Tao and Arco Para. Enjoy!
Oh, bash it. Oh, bash it.
Over under 3.5 more in this episode.
Is he allowed to do that?
You can't chime in
mention
like
a pre-game talk that was
Oh,
one
yes, I've got it. Yeah, I've got it. Yeah. No, Benny, that was good.
Welcome to BSI, the podcast, episode
Don't say the
10.
number. Oh,
Ike,
I
knew
right.
it. I knew it this time.
Good for you.
'Cause I remember last time was 9, this time is 10. We've only had like 3 or 4 days between recordings.
That's how it works, sequential
I
order.
will say, you just scared me because I wasn't ready for you to jump in right there.
Sorry.
But that was good.
Episode 10, we're going to get for the first time, we're going to get a coach on the podcast, a gaffer. Anthony Hudson coached me at Colorado Rapids for about 2.5 weeks. And now he's with the under 20. So we'll ask him some questions about the national team. We'll ask him obviously what went wrong with the Colorado Rapids, and ask him about his career in general as a coach. He started at a really early age, and he's coached with New Zealand, Bahrain, had some success there. So we'll get into all that, and then we'll find out some of the funny stories as well that he has to tell about his time at Colorado. So anything else that we need to add? I'm extremely disappointed with our GoFundMe page.
I'm going to just say to that point, we've got this episode and one more episode. If we don't hit the 10K by then, we're taking a break, and that's factual. Don't test us, please.
I will also say thank you to the ones that have donated.
True.
Anyways, let's hit the 10K, or else you'll never see us again. But
thank you to those who have donated. We really
thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. Thank you so much to those who have donated. That'll come in, handy to the people that are putting themselves out in the front line, in terms of doctors, nurses, teachers as well, who don't have the necessary equipments that they're having to buy out of their own pockets to keep teaching our kids. And God knows we need that, because oh my God, these kids are running rampant all over the place in my household right now. So I wish I had a teacher that could talk to them for 10 hours a day over the computer. Let me know if Aaron is available to do that.
Well, we like I told Rob Stone, we'll charge you a great rate.
All right. Anything else?
No, let's get it.
All right. Let's bring Anthony Hudson onto the show. Welcome to the show, Anthony. Welcome, Anthony Hudson, to the podcast, our first coach on the podcast. I'm excited about this one. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you, Benny?
I'm doing all right. Better than I was about a year ago.
Yeah, me too.
So welcome to the podcast. This is exciting for us, getting a coach, and kind of we've had so many players. We've had some media personalities, and we had Will Ferrell as one of the owners of teams, but this is our first interview with a coach, and so it'll be an interesting perspective from us, to get kind of your perspective on things. So thanks for coming on.
No problem. Looking forward to it.
All right, so we'll start off with some quick hitters, get you warmed up, get you loosened up, and then we'll get into some interview questions about your career as a manager mostly, and then unfortunately for you, you're going to have to step into the hot seat with Ike's interrogation, where he'll ask you 5 difficult questions. You can plead the 5th one time. And if you don't plead the 5th to any of the 5 questions, you can ask any one of us one question where we must answer truthfully.
Sounds good.
So have that in the back of your mind.
I've got it already. I've got one already.
I'm begging Ike to make you plead the 5th at least once, so I don't have to answer any questions.
We'll see how that goes.
All right. First question, quick hitters. Your biggest achievement as a coach, and I'll give you a couple options. If you have something else, you can tell me. Biggest achievement as a coach: winning Gulf Cup of Nations with Bahrain U23s in 2013, winning 2016 Oceania FC Nations Cup with New Zealand in 2016, or being compared to Jose Mourinho by Harry Redknapp.
I think, look, if I'm going to use those 3, definitely the Bahrain situation, because it was the first time they'd won it. And being in a completely foreign country, different language, different culture, like it was crazy working over there. It was an amazing experience. But to win the Gulf Cup, and if I can tell you how passionate they are about that competition and the other Gulf states and competing against Qatar and Kuwait, there's a lot of pride at stake. So that was good. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming you played against, what were some of the teams that you played in that competition?
We played Saudi Arabia in the final, which were they were like the big nation, the big team.
They were the team that had beaten you guys the time before, wasn't it?
So they beat us the year before. Yeah, they beat us the year before, and they were a good team.
Yeah.
We played Qatar, we played Kuwait, we played Oman. So and working over there, you get very familiar with all the teams. But the amount of national pride when you play those teams are really good.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's like their massive tournament, I guess, that they play in with them being a smaller country.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Well, with that, what is your biggest disappointment as a coach? Not qualifying for the World Cup with New Zealand against Peru, not finding success with the Colorado Rapids, or not qualifying for the Olympics with New Zealand U23s because of an ineligible player. Is that right? Is that what I read?
Ineligible player, yeah.
Was it Declan Wynn?
It was Declan.
It was Declan was the ineligible player?
Yeah, it was. And it was an administration error. Honestly, it was horrendous because we'd won every game in that tournament, as we should have done. And then we were preparing to play the final, and this thing came up, and we weren't sure what was going to happen. And I can't tell you, like, for these under 23 players, the opportunity to go to the Olympics it's big for these young kids.
Yeah.
And it's almost like their ticket to go and get professional contracts and all this sort of thing. So we're preparing for the final when we've got players in tears, not knowing where we were going to. And then we ended up getting disqualified. That was tough. That was really tough.
Did you guys play the game knowing that it was going to happen, or was it kind of still up in the air? They played.
No, we didn't play.
Oh, you didn't play. You didn't even playing.
Yeah,
okay.
The game was that day, and it was in the evening, and we got told at 4:00 we're disqualified. It was unbelievable. And the worst thing it wasn't the fault of the team, so it was a difficult one to take. Look, I would say Colorado out of those three, and the reason is because look, I've always I'm from America. I was born here. I've always wanted to come back and work here, and I think when you get your first job back in the country where you want to, and just with the league growing so much and the quality of the football is getting so much better, I think that was a tough one to take.
Yeah. I mean, I know I witnessed it firsthand for maybe not you were there for about a year and a half. I was there for less than half a year, as a lot of Colorado fans like to point out to me. But man, it was tough. And I just remember in preseason, I think you and the coaches were in the room right above us at Chula Vista. And I'm trying to sleep at like 4 a.m. You guys are yelling at yourselves at the computer. I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about up there, but
we were listening to Phil Collins every night. That's what we were doing. You remember who that is, you guys?
Yeah, the hitting the drums were the floorboard.
To be fair, we're actually the same age, Benny, me and you, aren't we?
I think you're a couple. How old are you now?
30, just turned 39.
39. I'm 35. So 35. I got 4 years to catch up to you in terms of coaching. I don't know if I'm going to do it.
Right.
All right. Last quick hitter. I've read that Bielsa is one of your favorite coaches. The way his styles and tactics, personality, whatever it is, and he doesn't coach in MLS. So my question is more MLS based. Who is your favorite coach within the league? And it can be however, whether you want to make it about style, tactics, personality, whatever.
Look, I've always said my experience in MLS, there was 2 coaches. When Greg was in Columbus, Greg was one of them. And I think Peter Vermees, for me, is the top coach. I think that what he's done with Kansas, obviously you guys know more than anyone, certainly know more than me, but from the outside looking in, like, what he's built, the way his teams play, the standards, things you hear about the way he runs the club, signings, I think he's done a great job there. I think he's an incredible manager.
Yeah, well, we could see based on some of the players you guys brought in in 2019, or what year were we at? 2019. Yeah. Well, we got, you brought me in, you brought Kai in, you brought Diego. You were missing, who else? Am I missing someone else? And then you were missing Ike, though. I told you guys should have brought in Ike.
We needed Ike.
Yeah. What was the first thing you said to your GM?
Yeah, I remember my first conversation was, let's bring Ike in. I know that Kansas City's trying to trade him right now. Let's bring him in. And, well, it's a good point that you made about Peter being, a good coach and GM, because he made it a big prize. He had to pay a lot of money to get that guy, but maybe it would have been worth it.
I remember that conversation. I was actually in my office, which was right by the corridor, and I could hear your conversation. And I remember as soon as I heard Ike's name, my ears popped up, and I'm like just praying behind the door. They're a good response, but that never happened.
Yeah, it was. I think the word that I heard was Peter's gonna ask for a king's ransom for Ike.
I think that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe it would have been worth it all the same. All right. Well,
actually, to be fair, I would have been terrible in Colorado because I can't ever win there on the road. I know being on the road. I think I have one win in my entire 11 years in Colorado on the road.
Yeah,
we devastating.
won.
Don't worry about that.
Us 3 won in Colorado.
Yeah, I think that was the only time.
That was the only time.
Oh yeah, that was
when I broke my ankle.
game?
Actually,
3-2.
Dom scored at the end.
Yeah.
Didn't you score that
scored
game?
one. Yeah. I gave
and
up
then
a
Zeus
penalty.
scored as well.
That's right. I think I scored off of. Was it your cross, Sal?
Yeah, I had 2 assists.
Yeah.
I think that's my only ever win in Colorado. I'm dead serious.
No, Ike actually is the main reason why Marvin, right? Hairston.
Marlon. Even though I like to call him Marvin and Marlon and all that.
Marlon Hairston has made a career because I gave him a goal one time and he became one of the best
He's my roommate
ever.
On the road sometimes. So he goes and gets me my gear because of that.
Done, Ike. Well done, Ike.
All right. Getting into some questions. You're done with the quick hitters. You've done well. I hope you feel warmed up. First question we're going to talk about is U20. So congratulations getting the U20s job.
Thank you.
And so I played on the U20s. Sal played on the U20s. And when we played, there was no real correlation with, the style of play and how we wanted to play. It was kind of like its own team in terms of comparing to the national team, to the full team. And, we've heard conversations that there's going to be more of like a joint, tactical awareness between the team. So how is that working? What is your job going to be in that in terms of like building players, developing players to hopefully eventually play for the full team?
Well, I think it's already, even though I've only had one camp, I think that's already started. I mean, I think the biggest thing is the fact that I'm in Chicago. So, I'm in all the meetings with Greg, with the first team. Greg's very open. I mean, if we're going to get this right, obviously you have to be open and you have to share. There is a huge, right now, even though I've had one camp, there is a huge amount of alignment because we're, even during this period, I've never been so busy. We're doing projects, we're doing analysis with the first team. When you texted me earlier, we was on a 4-hour conference call with the first team staff. That's twice a week, by the way, 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours, like long sessions where we're going over tactical analysis, where we're going over parts of our game plan. I think the key thing is we're going to be shared on the way we play in terms of principles. So tactical principles, we're going to be aligned. And then culturally, we're going to be aligned as well. So, I've just been asking loads of questions. I've been, thankfully, and it's probably the reason why I'm here, we're very close. We're very similar anyway in terms of how we work, in terms of how we think. There's some things I've had to adjust and I'm really keen to learn about. But certainly on the pitch and off the pitch, Benny, we're aligned. Like we are very much moving in the right direction, in the same direction. And this is not just coach talk. Like this is all happening. It's intense, but it's really, really good.
And what aspects of the, I guess, the team and the way the team's going to play and maybe, obviously in-game decisions, like Greg's not there. What kind of things I'm trying to get an understanding of how much you'll be able to kind of, build your philosophy in there as well. When it's obviously not possible to have that kind of opinion through Greg.
I think what we have to have is we have to have overriding principles. So, really, really strong core principles about what we want to do with the ball, without the ball, in transition. But game to game and in tournaments, in qualifiers, we're able to adjust. So the coaches of the 17s, 20s, we're able to adjust and do what we see is fit. But we can't go straying miles off of the line that we're working in, because anyway, that would be detrimental and wouldn't help us get success anyway. So we definitely have enough movement to be able to adjust how we see fit. But we have like really clear principles that guide us through the age groups. I think it's very good. I think it's really, really good. And it's for national teams, even for clubs, but certainly national teams. I think you have to have alignment. You have to. We had we had the camp in January in Florida, and we played against the first team, the first match, and then we played against Mexico in the second game. And the difference from the first to second game was huge in relation to the principles that we're talking about. And off the back of Greg seeing some of our younger players execute some of the things he wants the first team players to do, some of these guys were talked about a lot more, and they ended up coming in and training with the first team. So that's how it works, and that's how it should be. So it's definitely the right way, for sure.
So you mentioned you just had that one camp, and I'm sure you do tons of video scouting or, talking to coaches about certain players. Is there a player that you're pretty high on that maybe isn't on the radar of, fans and players as of now?
Oh yeah, look, I think our group's quite well known. Look, I don't know if I can say this, but the squad I selected for Portugal in March, we had a kid in there from San Antonio, Jose Gallegos.
I think
we've actually heard about him
on our podcast.
Yeah, we've been.
Amobi. I think Amobi talked about him.
We had Amobi Akugo, who's a player that used to play with us, and now he's retired. And he, or actually, he's not retired, is he? Or did he retire last year?
No,
he's still in Austin, I think.
Yeah. He's still playing. I take it back. Sorry, Mobes. I know he listens to the podcast, but he was playing USL, and he talked about that guy.
Yeah, we said give us your up and comer. Yeah, we said give us your up and comer. Yeah, he said there's a young kid from San Antonio that's really nice.
Yeah. So what is this guy? What he can do? What can he do?
Yeah, look, I don't want to sort of heap loads of pressure on him, because he's sort of come from an obscure soccer development. He hasn't been in the academies, or he's playing high school at the moment. He's just finishing high school. But this kid, when you see him play, like he's got real South American way about him. He's a number 10. But when he gets the ball, he just always wants to make something happen, and he's aggressive with and without the ball. He's a different type of number 10 that we typically have. Like he just wants to beat people, he wants to do a trick, he wants to create, and then when he loses it, he's just really aggressive, wants to go and win it back. So he's one where I'm excited about him. I'm excited to see how he does. So he was one. He was going to come into the March camp with us.
Nice, yeah. After hearing about him, I'm curious to see how he develops over the next few years.
Yeah. Do you ever get criticism, I guess, or do you hear the criticism of people saying, running the national team kind of like a club team? Because this mindset, kind of has that club team feel, and when it's a national team, it's really about always winning now. Do you ever feel or hear that, criticism and get that sense about it?
I don't think you can compare all national teams to each other, because I think every country is different in terms of the quality they have, the depth they have, the players playing in certain leagues and that sort of thing. So I think with regard to, like, for example, New Zealand was a lot smaller but quite similar in that we had to be aligned. Like the 17s, the 20s, the 23s, the first, we all had to be aligned because we just didn't have the depth. And I would say here, I think it's just not only, I don't think it's even a question whether we should do it. Like, it's something I think we have to do it, because not only does it, for me, when you think it through and when you look at how it works, like, it's just common sense, like to have the 17s and the 20s to play the same way, to have the same standards off the pitch, to have, culturally have the same environment. I mean, let's just say, for example, I created a different environment to the first team, different standards. And then we have a sort of a different style of play. Well, if Greg likes a player that's in the 20s and he goes up there and within 2 or 3 days, he's late, He's not used to all the tactical information. He's, and then on the pitch he doesn't, and he's not getting it in the first couple of days. Well, you don't have 2 or 3 weeks to be able to get it. You've got a couple of days to get it, to have an opportunity to get on the bench or in the first team. So I think it's not a case of like if, it's like we have to do this to become more efficient, to help our younger players progress. And then it's like your question at the beginning where you said, how much room do you have to do your own thing? And then obviously that's where it becomes about winning. You have your principles, you have your way of playing, but then game to game, you have to adjust or adapt to the opposition. And it's about results, of course.
So this is my question in terms of that. And not only my question, but I think a lot of things that a lot of people have kind of asked us about this. And with the national team setup, you have a certain player pool, right? You can't go grab, I always say a Lionel Messi to make your system work. And so how do you guys find, how do you manage that? Because I think Greg had a really good idea in Columbus, but he also was able to kind of find the players. Like, for example, the outside backs were really important in his system in Columbus. And so he went and got Harrison Offel. And he had, a defensive midfielder like Will Trapp that could be a guy that can come in deep and kind of spread the game out. And so you can go and find players like that to fit your system, where on the national team level, you have the players. You can't go grab other players from different countries. So is that something that's difficult? Is there a thought process of like, look, yeah, we want to play the system, but maybe we don't have these players exactly right now, so maybe we can adapt a little bit? Or is it like, no, this is the system, and hopefully the players will come?
Yeah, no, I don't think you can be as rigid as that. And I think I can assure you that the conversations daily around, we have our ideal style of play, and then it's how do we adjust what we're doing to accommodate the qualities that we have. And I think you've probably seen in the first team there has been a couple of principles that have changed since day one. It has evolved. And I would imagine as players start coming through, good young players start coming through and different profiles of players, I think that will continue to evolve and adjust. But it's definitely not a rigid way. I mean, off the top of my head, from a distance when I was at Colorado, they're definitely from day one, there has been changes because of the personnel. So, but that's definitely part of the conversation. Like, can this player do this? These are his strengths. How can we use his strengths better if we adjust this principle? So it's like, of course, that is definitely part of the conversation. You can't be too rigid in the way you're preparing the team.
Right. Well, before I get into Colorado, because that'll be a fun topic, but I'm really surprised that for the young player, you didn't mention your boy Cole Bassett. I really thought you were going to throw him in there.
Benny, I mention him all the time. I can't. I'm killing him. I can't.
Nah,
don't worry. Listen, don't worry. I'll get him in before the end of the call.
You know he loves it, by the way.
Okay, that's good. Then I'll do it a few more times.
All right. So Colorado, obviously, I was there for what?
Cole Bassett.
Over under 3.5 more in this episode.
Mr. Colorado.
Oh man, I hope he's got a long, good career ahead of him, man. Good kid, hard worker.
He's a good kid. Yeah, he's a good kid.
Yeah. All right, so I wasn't there for the first year, so I'm kind of curious how the first year went. Obviously, in the preseason of the second year, you alluded sometimes to how the team played and how there's some games that they played the right way, but maybe didn't get the results. So just tell us what you remember about the first year, what things you kind of learned from, what things you wish you kind of changed, and what things you didn't go as well as you would have hoped.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there, Benny.
You take it as you will, and then we'll interject.
One. Sum it up in 30 seconds. No.
Yeah. Look. I think the first. Here's the thing. I took over at a time where it was a big transition period. So what I mean by transition, I was told we want to change the style of play and we want to change the culture. So the first year was about really changing it. We brought a lot of new players in, probably too many new players at once. We changed the style of play. And I think, Benny, similar to the second season, I think if I look back and reflect on it, I think I tried to do things and similar to our conversation about the national team now, I think one of the biggest learnings for me was I came in from a national team, and where in a national team, the mindset of a coach in a national team is different to a club.
Right.
Because if you have a camp and if you're preparing the team on tour, and if a player doesn't fit you culturally or style of play, you just don't select him for the next tour. And it's easy. So when you go from that sort of environment to a club situation, you have a really fixed idea about how you want to play. Certainly I did, how I want to play, the culture I wanted to have. And I think for sure I tried to go too fast, too quick down. This is how we're doing things. This is how we're going to play. And the reality is, we just weren't there yet. We didn't have the resources. We didn't have the right personnel to play the game I wanted to play. So I think looking back, I should have managed that turnaround situation better. And I think, for people that are around the club, the fans and that, I remember when I first came in, we talked very big, like we were, we want to be a playoff team. We want to play attractive soccer, positive soccer, and all these things that we believed in, and I believe in, because that's why I came there, because that was a style of play I believe in. But the reality is, if you want to press high up the field, which is what we did in our first season, we pressed really high. If you want to press high, then you have to have certain characteristics, and that's not just your front players; it's also at the back, because you're leaving a lot of space. And also, if you want to play a passing game, a positional game, you also need certain characteristics. So my biggest learning was, it should have been evolution, not revolution. I think that's the saying. But it should have been a slow process of changing it into how we wanted to build the team. It was just too fast, too soon. If that makes sense.
In terms of like bringing players in, how the conversations that happened within the club, was it mostly, the players that you brought in? So you said you brought, maybe too many guys, foreign players at the same time. Was that a decision that you had? Was it a decision, by the higher ups? Was it kind of like a mutual thing, or, something that you guys only saw later that was a mistake? How was that? How were you involved in that process?
Yeah, Benny, out of respect for the people that at the club, because they gave me an opportunity, and it was an incredible experience, and it really was, because I learned a hell of a lot from it. I would say, from what my experience now, to really change a team, it takes 2 years, minimum 2 years. And the reality is, we can have all the names on the board that we want to bring in. We can have all the targets. We can have all the the depth of each position that we want to bring in. But the reality is, the time I came in, it was impossible, and it is impossible just to make complete change, because players are on big contracts. There's different situations, so you're having to, you're going for your top target, but you're not getting your top target. And this player who's on a big contract, you don't have all the money, your resources are not huge, your budget wise, there's all these different factors. And I think where you see the team now is probably where it needed to have been. In fact, but this is how long it takes. It takes a couple of years. And I think now they've managed to get some players off the books, managed to free up some money, managed to add pieces in places where they've needed players. But the management of that period is the key. That's the part I got wrong. The management of that period.
Yeah.
For me, it's with the money thing. I mean, it's like that at every club, right? If you don't have the resources money wise to succeed, I mean, you got to have your players playing up to their salary, right? And if you have big guys, big money players not playing to that level, I mean, you're handcuffed at that point if you can't offload them. I mean, that's just the reality of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, I think the reality, there's no way around it. The club was in need of some change, and I think that period that I was involved in, that was what we were doing. We were changing it, and it's not so easy just to quickly go and make change and buy contracts up and bring players in, because the reality is the league has grown very quickly in a short amount of time in terms of the type of players that are coming in, the quality of the teams. It's not the same as it was 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, you guys know this more than anyone. But again, it takes time to change a team. That's the bottom line. And for sure, I can't speak for anyone else in the club, but certainly my management of it was, for sure, it was a big lesson for me.
Yeah. So here's my question to you. So I get a lot of crap for this because when I left Colorado, I said that, in a public statement that I wanted to, I didn't have much time left in my career, which was a very true statement that I guess I didn't even realize how short my career was going to be after that. But I wanted to, play for a team that's competing to win championships. And so a lot of fans give me a lot of crap from Colorado because what happened when I left, Kansas City continued to not play as well as, we've normally seen over the last year. And Colorado, started from the bottom and ended up passing Kansas City and almost made the playoffs. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people give me a lot of crap for that. So my question to you is, and we'll go back a little bit for the Atlanta statements, because I still think that's one of the best post conferences. And I'm sure you don't want to talk about it, but it's one of the best comments I've ever heard in MLS. But my question is, do you kind of wish, I know it wasn't your choice to leave, but things were brewing and, that the comments in Atlanta and all that stuff. Do you kind of wish you kind of bit the bullet a little bit more and waited a little bit longer to see, be part of that change? Because obviously, some of the things, quickly changed after that. And I know they brought in some new players that I think really helped them. But it was, would you have wanted to kind of bit the bullet to kind of wait it out a little bit longer?
Did you see them turning the corner? Like, was it coming? Was it pretty close?
I think we needed a few players in certain positions. I think there was no secret we were desperately after some reinforcements at the back. I think Abubakar it really helped not only the team,
but that trade was in the works while you were still the coach.
Yeah.
So you knew that might come down. So that's why I'm asking, do you kind of wish as honestly, as great as the Atlanta comments were and made headlines, do you wish you had just not said anything and waited a little bit and maybe you could have been part of that turnaround? That is there a little bit of regret there or not really?
Yeah, Benny, I don't really have any regret because I think the reality, I take total ownership over those comments, and I'm not one to. Honestly, I'm really not. What I've done is I've looked at it and I've gone, right. You made a mistake there by coming out and saying what you said afterwards. And by the way, we can talk about this, but the intention wasn't to say what I said. It came out the wrong way, but the reality is I said
I didn't play that game. You sat me on the bench, so I feel like you weren't talking about me. So.
I wasn't talking about you, Benny. Maybe if you were playing, I would still be in a job. I wouldn't have said that.
Yeah, right.
But so look, the reality. So I look at that and I say, right, I made a mistake. I got that for me as a coach to come out and say that after the game. That's not. First of all, that's not what I believe in. That's not right. That's not the type of coach or the type of leader you want to be. That's not. I was disappointed at myself that came out the way it did. So for me, coming away from it, it's been more about, do you know what? That happened. You got to take the pain now of what it is to get sacked as a result of your comments. You got to learn the lesson. I just believe I'll be better for it. I'll be a stronger person for it, a better coach for it. And that point, the point about, really defending your team and relationships and also just being a bit more composed after games and not getting so wound up about it all, because I'll talk about actually the comments after the game. The intention for me and the true intention was to defend the team, because every week I felt the team were getting attacked every single week, and I knew that we were playing against teams, and I just felt other teams had DPs and attacking positions and all this, and I just felt the team just got attacked, and I don't think the intention was to defend that. And we just gone and played Atlanta, and so what I meant to say didn't come out how I wanted to say it, and it came out the way it did. But listen, that doesn't matter. The reality is I said it, and I take responsibility. But I certainly don't look back and go, do you know what? If I hadn't have said that, I might have been part of now they're bringing more players in and DP coming. Well, no, I don't look at that. I just say, look, I learned the lesson. I've got to grow from it, and that's in the past. I've got to look forward.
Yeah. And what is looking forward? I know that you talked about, loving to have come to MLS where you're born in America and coach in the US. And yeah. I've read through interviews that you'd like to stay here and get an opportunity. I mean, obviously you're with the under 20s right now. But for the future, I'm sure that you'd not rather, but you'd want to get back into club at some point. What does that look like? What is your hope for the future, to get back into MLS at some point?
Yeah, but look, Benny, I don't have any. If you'd have asked me that a couple of years ago, I would have told you a definite. I want to be here by then. I want to be managing there. I want to be at this. Like, I think when you get sacked, it rattles you a bit. No, but when you get sacked, it makes you think about things, and you have no choice but to get honest with yourself. And I think that where I am now is I want to, first of all, I believe in what's happening here with the game. I mean, what's happening with the quarantine, with the virus and everything, is just crazy. And now I don't know how that's going to affect the game here. But nevertheless, the game's still going to grow here. And I believe in the game here. I believe in what's being done here. I think it's such an exciting time for soccer in the country. And I genuinely want to play a part in a very small part in trying to help the game develop. Right now I'm with the 20s, and I'm honestly not looking past it. For me, it's about, I want to get as many players in the first team as possible. I actually, all I care about, and this is
Cole Bassett.
I want to get Cole Bassett in the first team. So, no, but listen, for me, it is about that. It's doing right by the young players for the 20s. I want to be someone that's helped them develop, been in their corner.
I think you got something by the mic, by the way. Are you moving?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. It was just rustling or something.
It's a picture of Cole I've got on my laptop. Take that off. I'm joking, Cole. It's not really. So no, look. The reality is that's what I want to do. I want to play a part in developing these younger players and being there, supporting them, developing them, getting them into their first team, helping them in their first teams, in their clubs, in the first team with the national team. Honestly, since this quarantine started, we have been so busy. There's been so much going on with the 20s. Like we probably got a group of 50 plus players in the wider squad, and we've just been non-stop, like forming a group, WhatsApp group. We've had competitive stuff going on. It's been brilliant. Players have been making videos. We've had individual sessions with the players. We've been sharing my video screen. We've been going over tactics with the players, about their roles. We've just been doing everything. Like, we've been doing a lot of really good stuff, and I've enjoyed it. And I feel we're building relationships with the players, and that's what I want to do. I want to build relationships with the players, not just me, the staff as well. And we want to help these players. So to answer your question, Benny, I'm not looking beyond that, and I want to do a good job here, and then let's just see what happens after that.
Okay. I got one more question before Ike's interrogation, but it doesn't have to do with Colorado or the national team. Anybody else have anything?
No, you can.
All right. So my last question is about your podcast. So I know you do your own podcast. I've listened to clips. First of all, tell us about the podcast. Are you still doing it now?
It's tough now because of my job, but right. Something that I would like to continue doing, because the purpose of it is, I'm very, very, I'm a big animal lover. And wherever I've gone in different countries, like, honestly, gents, I've been to some places and I've seen horrendous things with animals and all this. And I've always wanted to do something, have a shelter, and I've just never had the time to do it because of my job. So when I came here, my good friend is in Chicago. They have an unbelievable shelter called Pause in Chicago. This place, honestly, Jen, is unlike no other I've ever seen. It's like the only no-kill place around, but it's like a holistic place where they've got a medical center there. They've got a dog rehabilitation center there, so they're getting these dogs ready so they can go out and be fostered. It's just an amazing place. So the objective is to create a little bit of awareness and money for that. And the other side of it is coach development. So for me, I would say, like, over as a coach, and I don't know if you're going to be doing this, Benny, but like what I found is, going on coaching courses and all these things, they're great, but there's always the best bit of learning I've always found is going to clubs and speaking to managers, and going into clubs at times in the season where there's real life things going on. They've lost the game on a Saturday. They've had a player got in trouble. He's in the media, all these things. And you're going into environments and you're seeing how managers react to it and deal with it and ask questions. I think they've been so good. So that was the purpose, to try and speak to some of these people in the top levels in the game, and get learnings which you can't normally get off a course. So that's the purpose.
You were a head coach at like ridiculously young ages, right? Was that something you always knew you wanted to do? Like when you were a player, you knew, hey, when I'm done playing, I'm going to be a coach.
Yeah, look, Sal, to be honest, I finished playing when I stopped playing when I was younger. I didn't. The reality is, I didn't make it as a player. I my old man played. He played in America. That's why I was born here. But he was a big player, and I think as a young player, I struggled with that side of it. And when I didn't make it to the level I wanted to make it at, and when you get honest and you know that the reason you didn't make it is because you didn't deal with that situation very well, or you didn't give it your full out, your best. And I think that disappointment really drove me early on to go, right, I want to be a top coach. I want to be the best I can be. And then from early on, I just felt like, I was an assistant for a couple of years, and I just had strong ideas about the game. So I wanted to be a head coach from quite young.
You were
go ahead, Mike.
You were a player coach at Wilmington.
Yeah, but the reality, I was a player coach there, but it was only really to be a coach. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to coach, and I used my playing to be a coach.
Right, because I'm from around that area, so I was just curious, how that whole thing went down. The Hammerheads, good.
Yeah, it's a great place. Yeah.
Oh, it is a good time.
And we had, and I was fortunate because we had a head coach called Dave Irving. I don't know if you know Dave Irving.
I've heard the name, but no, I don't know.
But see, Dave was a little, he's a great guy, top guy, but he liked the game of golf, which meant that I got a lot of work to do. So as a young coach, I did everything, and he gave me the responsibility. So that was great. And then I got a taste of it, and I wanted to be a head coach. So that's how it all happened.
So Anthony, going back to, I know we kind of jumped around a little bit, but going back to your podcast, and I'm glad that you answered that, from the two coaches in MLS that you really, love watching. One of them's Peter. And obviously we've had Peter as a coach. And tell me one story, one, interesting note or story that he told on your podcast that, would be, good, fun for us to hear.
Well, look, have you heard it? Have you listened to it?
I've heard it to bits. I haven't heard the entire thing. No.
Or something that happened kind of behind the scenes.
Any story about Peter that we can go up to him. Then I'll text him tonight and be like, "Hey, I just learned something new about you."
Yeah.
Because it was.
He's open behind the scenes for sure, and he lets you get some good tidbits.
He loves telling stories.
I don't think most people know this about him, that Peter's, he's very goal oriented. And in terms of like what he wants his team to achieve, he'll do anything to get that, But once he's outside of that setting, and I've been with him, a few times in those settings. For example, one time, my agent was there, and he actually was part of the league way back when. And so these stories come up of like when the league was just coming up, and all these crazy stories, and that has nothing to do with, football, but it's just, he like opens up. And so like, he has these little moments where he tells like really funny stories. And so I'm curious, when you were with him, right? It wasn't over the phone. So he must've, said, some little tidbit that you can share with us.
I can't remember. Listen, I don't know if this story's on the podcast or not, but I know he told it me, but, that you might know the player that they signed, the foreign player. So was he a South American player? Big signing, big name player. I can't remember who it was, but they were off. It was at the beginning when they were building the stadium, and they were on a losing streak. And the player came to meet Pete at the hotel and sat down and said something along the lines of, "I'll be here longer than you."
Julio Cesar. Yeah,
Is that who it was?
Yeah, it was Julio Cesar. He was that
I've never heard this story.
Yeah, when they had to go like 10 games on the road, and he's played all these big clubs, and he came in and was just
but I'm surprised Julio Cesar would have said that, since he's played with 30 clubs in 5 years.
Right, but his whole point was they're gonna fire you because you're gonna struggle on the road.
Oh, that's right, because all the game, I got it now. All the games were on the road at first.
Right.
And look, I think one of the best things about Pete, like this, why he's done so well. I think probably. I hope it doesn't, but probably it gets underestimated, the job he's done there. But to have the power and I want to say control, but that's what it is.
It's control. Yeah, you could say it.
He's had the years and the power and control to be able to build something like that.
That goes to show
He's done well with it.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes to show when you get good people in the right positions with the right ideas, and they have the authority and the power to go and to lead it. I mean, you get good things from it.
Yeah.
So I think, it's incredible what he's done.
And even Peter will admit that especially last year and even before, maybe even the year that they did really well and went to the Western Conference Finals. The last year Ike was there, Peter wanted to bring in some bigger names. And so he still has to go through, the ownership group to be able to get those names and allow them to, pay that kind of money. And to be honest, I don't think they wanted to because they were doing so well. They were in first place in the conference. They were doing fine with the players that they had. And so they're thinking, I don't need to do this. We're doing fine. And so, it's still as much, as control that Peter has over that organization. It's still sometimes tough to find the players that you want to bring into your team. So, now this year they found some new players that have done pretty well, although now the season's stopped.
Yeah, I had a trolling moment with SKC Instagram handle. I like to still mess with some of those guys, but when they signed the forward, I commented, weird on Instagram. I started getting like crushed for it, just like I was having a good time. I'm like, oh, now you guys
can you at least name his name, Alan Polito?
I feel like I'm gonna say it wrong, so I don't feel confident saying it.
I'm with you there.
They say it Alan Pulido.
Yeah, I think it's Alan. Yeah, I can't say Alan. That's a slow. Yeah, well. Anyways.
All right. Well, I think that's all that we got. So unfortunately now for you, Anthony, you're going to step into the hot seat and you're going to be able to plead the fifth one time out of 5 questions. And I really hope that you do, so I don't have to answer whatever question you're going to ask me. So, Ike, he's all yours. Enjoy the hot seat.
All right, let's do it.
Come on, Ike.
Come on, question number 1, hopefully, is a funny one. What has been your biggest tactical or team talk miscue of your MLS managerial career, where after just 5 minutes you go, oh shit, I got that one wrong. What's
Benny said to you about this? Benny's had
I have not said anything. I don't even know I never know the questions that Ike's going to ask.
Yeah,
I'm not partaking in this.
Ike, repeat the question again.
Okay.
He doesn't know it.
The funny thing is the fact that you said that. I think both of us think of the same one.
Come on, Ike. Let's go.
The biggest tactical or team talk miscue that you had in your MLS managerial career. Like, it could be something like 5 minutes into the game, you just knew you got that one all wrong. And what was going through your mind when it was happening, I guess, throughout the game or whatever?
Look, I think when I look back, the biggest mistakes were losing my head in the locker room. Like once or twice is okay, but I think it happened once or twice too many, and that was probably. And I don't think that was right. That wasn't good.
Wait. So in general,
I thought there was
a specific moment. Okay.
No, well, listen. No, I think that there were a couple of moments where I lost my head in the locker room, and that doesn't. I don't think it was effective.
Did you throw a shoe or anything? Benny got a shoe thrown at him once.
Listen, I wish I'd have thrown a few things.
It wasn't a shoe, dude. In the LAFC thing, Bob kicked a water bottle.
Oh, it was a water bottle.
And the water bottle went right past mine and Adama Diamante's face. And like, I think it actually hit Dio, but it went flying. And he kicked it with his left foot toe poke. Had no accuracy. It went flying right past my head. Like, it was awesome, but pretty funny.
John Spencer with Portland karate chopped the whiteboard just like with this, like did a high kick.
That's brilliant.
That's brilliant. Yeah, cracked it in half. It was crazy.
I'm not going to say anything because this is your interrogation, but I thought you were going to mention.
Hang on, is Benny allowed to do this? Is he allowed to do this?
You can't
you were
chime in
mention
like
a pre-game talk that was.
Oh yes, I've got it. Yeah, I've got it. Yeah. No, Benny, that was good. That was good.
That was one of the funniest and most awkward pre-game talks I've ever been a part of. You know which one I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Wait, just say the city or the team.
I'll tell you a little bit, right? I'll tell you a little bit. This is actually quite funny. So what we found was at halftime, in the second half, players used to come in halftime, and whenever I used to have a go at the players, second half, they would come out with a bit more fight, and it was always good in the second half. So I'm with the staff, and I'm thinking, look, why can't we start the game this way? I've been asked the players, why can't we start the game? So I'm thinking, so right, we're on the road, right? So I said to my assistant, The players now start walking into the team meeting. And I said to my assistant, about a minute before the last player sits down, just come up to me and say some things to make me angry, right? And he keeps walking up to me. And I can't stop laughing. I'm like trying, because we know the setup. And now he's saying, this player wants you to get the sack. This he's saying loads of different things. Now I'm angry. And then we tried to create halftime before the game and get a few people angry. That's how it worked.
Did it work?
It was awesome.
Actually, well, listen, but the reality was, Benny, you'll know that game. I mean,
that game. Do you want to say what? I remember what game that was. It didn't turn out very well in the first half, by the way.
Yeah, no, but that wasn't the reason why.
No, there was. I mean, do you want me to say what I think the reason was?
Go on then.
I mean, Tommy had a horrific game that game. Tommy, that was against Chicago. It was a 4-1 game.
Chicago away. We went 1-0 up.
Did we go 1-0 up, or did we tie it?
No, so we tied it 1-1.
We tied it, yeah. We gave up a goal. Then Kai scored on a header. And I just remember the third goal. I think it was the third goal. Maybe it was the second goal. I think it was actually at halftime. Were we not tied 1-1 at halftime, or was it 2-1?
1-1 at halftime, yeah.
Anyways, I just remember this other goal where it's just like a lazy ball up, and Tommy, in terms of like giving him the benefit of the doubt, he misread it, I guess. But he tries to get in front of the attacker where it's not even going to that attacker, and then it just goes right to the other player that has a break going. It was insane.
I just remember this because I got thrown in the group chat with a couple people and you, Benny, and I won't say who asked you the question. He said, "Is Tommy blind?"
Dude, I mean, trust me. In those, so we were there. I was there for, I believe, 12 games before I left, and I'll be honest. I mean, I wasn't playing well or anything, but no team would ever win when I think we were leaking 3.5 goals a game during those 12 games or something similar to that. I think it was over 3 goals a game. So, I mean,
that's not a leak, bro.
Yeah, exactly. That's you gotta call the plumber because the faucet's broken. So
look, I think in, especially when I left, that bringing Abu Bakr in there definitely helped.
He was massive.
Pace, athleticism. I think that's what we definitely missed, and that helped Tommy. That helped
everybody. That helped everyone. It wasn't just Tommy that improved. I mean, Keegan improved. Yeah. Keegan improved big time. I remember in the beginning of the year, I mean, there were guys getting in behind Keegan as well. And once he had that, player that he could count on next to him, then he played a really good season after that. And so anyway, Sammy Vines came in and he helped out as well.
All right, anyway, question 2, Benny.
Sorry. Ike, by the way, the team talk was brilliant.
Hey, you guys have that recorded somewhere? Because I'd like a copy.
Yeah, and that is never slipping out. That is never getting out.
All right, question 2.
Question 2. Rank these Kiwis and other players that you've managed. They've all been my teammates or are my teammates at the moment. From first to worst in terms of likability.
So
these are all guys that we know and are in group chats with us. So you better crush some of these guys.
In terms of likability or playing.
Likability. You can make it be personality. You can make it be talent. Okay. You can be anything. Actually, the fact that you said that, now that I'm going to change it up. It's going to be Clint Irwin, Diego Rubio.
Hang on, you said Kiwis.
I know. I've switched it up after Benny said because.
I thought it was going to be okay. Yeah, sorry.
Originally, it was going to be Musa, Boxall, and Billingsley. But now,
by the way, they've asked you that question.
Yeah, they did.
I know that one. Yes.
Okay. We'll keep it Kiwis: Musa, Boxall, Billingsley, and then I'm going to add in a couple additional.
Yeah, that's fine.
With Musa, Clint Irwin and Diego Rubio and Eric Miller. Let's go Sticks.
Well, look, that's not even a tough question, Ike, because look, I've not really worked with James Musa. He was only in and out the under 23s for a short amount of time. By default, he would drop down. Noah Billingsley, I've not really worked with him. I know all about him from the 20s, but I've not really worked with him.
Okay, so now you're down to 4th. So now if you're 4th, you're last. You've already eliminated them subtly. So they don't even count.
No, they're 2 and 3, and Boxy's 1. Only because I worked with Boxy for a long time.
Okay, but what about Marlon, Eric Miller, and Diego?
Oh, you've added Marlon in there.
Yeah, I added Marlon. Yeah.
That's why I said you should have gone with like Colorado Rapids. That would have been an easier question because he's worked day in, day out with these guys.
Okay, so Ike, who are the new names you just added?
Okay, how about this? This could be question 3.
Yeah,
Clint Irwin, Diego Rubio.
You're loving this, aren't you? Yeah, go on then.
Clint Irwin, Diego Rubio, Eric Miller, Marlon Hairston, and Cole Bassett, just because. From first to worst.
Yes. Okay, so let's go. Look, I'd have Cole and Diego joint first.
Joint first, okay.
And then I would say Clint Irwin, Eric Miller, Marlon and Eric. See, yeah, but this is it in terms of. I'm going off how long I've worked with these guys.
Maybe the reason that you worked with them so few times is because they're on the bottom already. You just said, "All right, see you later."
Yeah, you shipped Eric Miller off after like 2 weeks, so.
I didn't ship him off, by the way.
Yeah, he was my road roommate the first year, so all good until he got traded again.
Wait, what was that question 3?
I made it 3 just because.
Can you give him a question he can't answer, please? I don't want to hear a question from him today.
It feels like I've had 7 questions here.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Okay.
Question 4.
You have to rank these 4 managers from first to worst.
Okay.
And they're all underrated managers, I think, that don't get their due as much in MLS. So Jim Curtin, Brian Smetzer, Greg Vanney, and Caleb Porter.
Oh, that's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah, who's the worst manager?
That is a tough question.
Yeah.
Listen, that's really tough.
You still got to plead here.
Look. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say this, right? Oh, that's tough. That's really tough, isn't it? Listen. For different reasons, I like every single one of them.
I'm sure.
I'm going to go.
Oh, you're going to do it?
No, I'm not. I'm pleading the 5th. Like,
I finally got one again.
I'm gutted. I've pleaded the 5th, by the
way. All right. I'm glad I don't have to answer any questions today.
Yes, that is good. I'm back on the roll, baby. The heater starts now. All right. Fan question.
Last question, right?
Yeah, last question. Fan question. If you could sign any all-white player to your MLS team, who would it have been?
Chris Wood.
Is that the striker?
Striker at Burnley. Yeah. I'd say Chris Wood or Ryan Thomas at PSV.
Okay.
Their strengths were or are.
Woodsy's a player. I think he would be brilliant in MLS. He is athletically. He's a unit. He's so powerful. He's quick. But he's just a really good goal scorer. Like, he's so dangerous in the box. And for a big guy, he's got great feet. And he's doing it in the Premier League. You know, he's done very well. He did it in the Championship, and he's doing it. And then Ryan Thomas is a young kid come through. He went to Pek Zwolle in Holland. Then he went to PSV. And this kid is a player. Like, he's just an attacking midfielder. He's a total winner. Like, he's got loads of quality, but he just wants to win. He's like so hungry. He's all over the pitch. Like, he's a top player. He's going to be a big player.
Nice. I really wanted to ask Anthony a question, one of my own plead the fifths, but I don't think he's going to want to answer. I'll ask it anyways, and then if you don't want to answer, we'll just take it out. But it would have been my favorite question for you. So you're a coach for a team, doesn't matter what team. You have to win this game. You have to win. It's life or death. You got to win this game. And you are playing against the Colorado Rapids.
Yeah.
And you can pick 2 players from these 4 that must start for the Colorado Rapids.
That must start. Oh, Benny, what are you doing with this?
And the 4, the two that you got to pick from these 4.
Go on then.
And they're all center backs.
Benny.
Axel Schuberg, Kofi Opare, Tommy Smith, and Danny Wilson.
Played in the 5th.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
One of the easiest questions I have. I think this is just
that question would have been fantastic. If he had gotten to answer that last one, I wouldn't have let you ask whatever the hell you asked fifth. I would have made him plead the fifth there. That's the ultimate question right there. By the way, I would have answered that easy. You know, I would.
Oh yeah, Benny,
he wants to tell you so bad who he would pick.
Do you know who I would pick?
Well, if he says Benny, that, then he's already.
I don't need to know, Benny. I don't need to know.
All right. Well, all right, Anthony. We really appreciate you coming on, dude. It's a pleasure. I'm glad we got our first coach on the podcast. And let me know if you ever want any of us coming on your podcast whenever. Yeah. You have some time. I know you're busy now.
That'd be good, guys. Yeah, that would be good. And also, at some stage, coming in and speaking to our young kids with the 20s.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be great because I think both me and Sal for sure can attest to the fact that my career started with the 20s. Really.
Yeah, same.
Ziggy called me in.
Yeah. Ike too, probably. Yeah.
Ike as well?
Yeah, for sure. But I also, on the Darlington episode, announced my unofficial retirement from the national team. So you can pass that message along to Greg if you'd like.
If we ever have Greg, if we ever have Greg on the show, I will definitely ask him why Ike has never been called up to the national team. I will ask him.
I don't want it.
It doesn't matter what you want. I want to know.
I think it's an attitude. I think it's an attitude problem.
I think it is an attitude.
Shit attitude.
But seriously, like the very fact that the under 20s, your experience of that and what it did for your careers.
Oh yeah,
you guys, you need to come and speak to our young kids on camp sometime. Definitely.
If you guys ever do a camp out in San Diego or LA, let me know. Chula Vista, maybe.
We'll come to you then, Sal.
Yeah, I'm not getting on a plane or anything. So,
all right, Anthony, really appreciate it, and good luck with the 20s. And we'll make sure to get in touch whenever you guys are close, and we can come in and talk and
yeah, that'd be good.
Have a little word with the guys.
Yeah, sounds good. Cheers, gents.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you so much, Anthony Hudson, for coming on the show. I know it's sometimes hard, talking about some of those stories, but Ike, you got one pretty good one out of them.
Yeah, I was trying to get something. It's a little bit different from a coach's perspective and being guarded, but I think he did a good job of, opening up to show us a little bit about, his world and his past and stories.
I'll never forget that Chicago pregame talk where it seemed like we had already played half the game and getting brutalized in the
before kickoff. Before warm-ups, even, right?
You guys all suck.
wait. I don't think he ever said what he said, so he might have.
I mean, that wasn't really what he said, but it was something like, what are you guys doing or something? I can't remember, but it was awesome. We can get now another. We can bring Clint Irwin on and ask him about his recollection of that.
No, we need to get Cole Bassett, apparently.
That's true. Cole Bassett, next prodigy. All right. Well, anything else to add, boys?
No.
I don't even add the where we list all our podcasts. I think pretty much everybody knows that it's on literally every podcast platform that you can find it. Keep listening, keep rating, keep emailing us questions. We appreciate everything. And like we said in the intro, get back onto the GoFundMe page. If you've already donated, we appreciate that. If you can donate more, then we appreciate it even more. If you haven't and you have something to give, then give what you can. We appreciate, any dollar that we can get to give to the people that need it most right now and are putting themselves out at risk for us. So that's all I got. Anybody got anything else?
No, that's good.
All right. Thanks so much for showing up, and we'll see you guys next time.